Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. Here we are in Los Angeles at the California Science Center with Endeavour behind us here. We got a little news story about Endeavour is going to be looking a lot different than that in a couple years. And we've got, on today's episode of Stay Curious, we're going to look at the space shuttle life of Eileen Collin, who commanded both of her missions in the month of July. She's the first female pilot and spaceship commander. We're going to give a nod to the genius who helped figure out gravity. And we've got an astronaut love story to end our episode today as we congratulate ASM friend John Herrington on taking a new bride in Montana yesterday. So, Danielle, we know that you married a good one there, and old John, and we're going to talk a little bit about that to the end of the program on a happy note here. So hello to Marty Winkle, my co-producer, as we are well into our fourth year of providing some what we think is different take on space news every day, particularly shuttle news. We also love to tout our one-of-a-kind museum that for 22 years has been preserving the birth of the American space age right here in its delivery room, Brevard County, and our American Space Museum in downtown Titusville. So I hope you get a chance to check us out on a vacation down here on the Space Coast. If you don't know, we're just 50 miles from the attractions over in Orlando, and some of the greatest beaches in the world are just a few miles from where Marty and I are sitting. Marty Winkle, my co-producer there, he was out doing some astronaut wrangling today. Who's out there today, Marty?
Sam Gamar's out there.
Ah, good old Sammy. And how was our good astronaut wrangler there, Nick Thomas?
Nick's fine. He's doing good.
He's fine. He's good. Well, Nick's going to come on Monday, July 17th, and do his beautiful monthly recap of, we got a Mercury mission, Gus Grissom's, and we've got GT10 with Young and John Young and Collins. So we don't know what he's going to talk about, but it'll be right from the mouth of those astronauts that he deals with all the time. And I'm talking about Nick Thomas, who for 35 years has been involved at the Visitors Complex at Kennedy Space Center. Well, Marty, it's always sad and yet happy that I run across pictures of Mr. Hugh Harris, who passed away in February. On this date, July 6th, last year, he did a wonderful program with us about the shuttles of the month of July. And as I run across pictures of this man, we celebrated his 90th birthday on Stay Curious before he passed away. So we're always about keeping the legacy of people like Hugh Harris, the voice of NASA during the shuttle era. We want to keep their memory alive. And when I come across with pictures of Hugh here, it still kind of hurts me to see him. But go to our YouTube channel and you can see Mr. Harris's talks with us, as well as a tribute that we did to him when we had the wake here at the American Space Museum back in June. So today in space history, in fact, 334 years ago today, let's make it 335 because it was July 5th, 1686. So that would be 337 years ago that Isaac Newton published his historic work called the Principia. The full title is The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, which is what they called nature back in the days. He lays out the laws of motion, the laws of universal gravity, and extends Kepler's laws of planetary motion. This book was so important over 300 years ago to help and define the age of reason, that's called. The age of reason being when people finally realized that the Earth was orbiting the sun and the sun was orbiting somewhere in our galaxy. And this Newton's Principia was the main description of all these laws in motion. And it contained universal material that was to influence people up to Einstein in the 20th century. So in this theory, then it was a theory at the time this was published, and then, of course, proven as fact. Newton said the entire universe was filled with elements of different sizes which shifted around each other. And he attributed magnetism to the vortices of this gravity stuff going on. Today, we are still thinking about the mysteries of the universe, just like Newton did 330 years ago. When we launched just last weekend, Carlton Bailey took this shot of the spacecraft Euclid that is now parked about 1 million miles away from Earth. Here is an artist's rendering of it. And this spacecraft is going to find dark matter. And dark matter is something that just came on the scene about 20 years ago, because astronomers realized that the visible universe, everything we can visibly see of the stars, galaxies, trillions and trillions of galaxies filled with billions and billions of stars, that only represents 95% of the known universe. That's incredible to think about, isn't it, Marty? 95% of the known universe, of the universe is unknown. We only know 5% of it. And therefore, what do we know if you only know 5% of something? This spacecraft, Euclid, is going to help us find what dark matter is. And dark matter could be planets orbiting other star systems that we've discovered, over 5,000 of them. Certainly that has a lot of mass that you can't see directly. But this is going to be groundbreaking, just as Newton's Principia was 330 years ago. So you're going to expect great things out of Newton's, or just like we did out of Newton, out of this spacecraft Euclid. We'll keep you up on it here on Stay Curious, because we're going to talk about another groundbreaking telescope observatory that Eileen Collin launched to space here in just a few minutes, that has changed the way we look at black holes and galaxies. Well, here is the Endeavour out there in California. I'll bet our good friend Doug Forrest is watching today and has been seen Endeavour in all of its glory there at the California Space Museum. Let me make that big like that. And find my little story on this, that they are going to put up, finally, take Endeavour off the ground, as you see it there, and raise it up to a vertical stack. And the stack is just going to begin to be stacked up here. They're going to, and out in California. This is a story that I harvested off of Collect Space, a good little website for some kind of offbeat stories from time to time. Here's the new facility that's going to be built. And Marty, I don't have my notes on this. Doggone it. I'm telling you, this, I don't see it. Is it printed out there?
I don't see it.
Okay. Laying on my desk, maybe. I wanted to think of the name of this new facility at the California Space Museum. That's all right, Marty. I don't. Let me see if I laid it down here. Nope. Okay. Well, whatever it's called, bear with me. This is going to be quite a facility. It's going to take 2 years to build. All right. And what it's going to look like is like this when it's done. You're going to see Endeavour stacked. They're just ready to put down the exhaust vents for the solid rocket boosters. There's going to be a ceremony on July 20th when they're going to do that. So we look forward to seeing this vertically stacked like that. There's an observation deck up at the top, and this is an artist rendering, a very good one, of what that's going to look like. In about 2 years. So you have till the end of the year, I think, to look at Endeavour laying down like this, and then it'll be about a 2-year absence. I don't know where they're going to house it. Probably just put a cloth over it and keep it in there. Looks sort of like the garage that they have the Saturn V in out in Houston. But these take a lot of money to keep these things going, and they finally found the money to put Endeavour on a stack. Of course, this was the orbiter that replaced Challenger OV-105. So, well, let's look at the shuttles of the month of July. And yes, the shuttles of the month of July, 11 beautiful shuttles. All right. And that 68 crewmen were launched on these 11 shuttles. 15 of them were females. And these were some very interesting flights, as you see across the top there. STS-135, the final launch and landing of a shuttle in July 2011. So we'll be celebrating 12 years. And that was launched July 8th. Then we've got in the STS-70 is the famous Woodpecker mission, the All-Ohio crew also, but woodpeckers attacked the external tank and put holes in it. That was kind of something NASA had to deal with. And then the bottom row there, STS-93 and 114, that's what we're going to talk about today, because those were commanded by Eileen Collins. And here she is, Eileen Collins. If you've not met her, you'll never forget her. She is such a humble yet important astronaut in the entire Corps for representing women, inspiring the women as well as men. She was in the Air Force, and it was not an easy road to hoe, wanting to become an aviator, but she was hooked on it from a child, okay? Born in Elmira, New York on November 19th, 1956. She was one of 4 women chosen for undergraduate pilot training at Vance Air Force Base in Oklahoma. Even as a child, she loved aviation and read books on World War II aviators and such. So you roll forward, and she was part of the group of astronauts called the Hairballs in 1990, Group 13. She became the first woman pilot on STS-84 and went to the Mir Space Station. STS-63, she was a pilot, rendezvoused with the Mir Space Station. Then on STS-84, she docked with the Mir Space Station. And then in 1990, then STS-93 is when, in 1998, when she got her first command. And our friend Jonathan Ward has written his 4th book on Eileen. We got to be very close with her. Through the glass ceiling to the stars, the story of the first American woman to command a space mission. And that would be the important Chandra X-ray telescope that we had there. And I confess I've not read this yet, Jonathan. It's in the stack of books I need to read. I've leafed through it a little bit there, but you can be assured it's a great story that she tells of everything not being peaches and cream for women in the Air Force. She was actually chosen as a C-141 Starlifter. These are these big cargo planes that she was an expert, I understand it, at landing them so precisely. And during the American invasion of Grenada in October 1983, her aircraft flew troops of the 82nd Airborne Division from Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina to Grenada. Though women were not supposed to be in combat at that time in 1983, they gave her combat pay. And she later was involved at aerial refueling training. This lady has flown anything that you want to fly and is an expert at it. And, of course, then flying the greatest flying machine of all, our America's Space Shuttle fleet. So a great book about her. Here's a picture of Jonathan with Jack Lausma in an event. That was your Grumman event, Marty, a year or so ago there. Marty, the Grumman electrical engineer that worked on the lunar modules. Marty helped throw the events that Grumman employees had on some of the 5 and 10-year anniversaries of the Apollo missions, as well as the Skylab and Apollo-Soyuz test project there. So, Jack, you're looking good there. Hope he's doing well up in Michigan. So are you, Jonathan Ward. And I'll email you to watch this special tribute to your friend there, Eileen Collins. And, Marty, you've met Eileen. I mean, she could be an Avon lady as far as you would know. She's so just so nice and giving, and you end up talking to her, as you'll see here at the end. And you're the one that has to say, "I got to go back to work, Eileen." Okay, but just a wonderful person. Here's one of her quotes: "We want to explore. We're curious people. Look back over history. People have put their lives at stake to go out and explore. We believe in what we're doing. Now it's time to go." And what an inspiration from such a brilliant woman who wouldn't take no for an answer, and did what the men had to do as a woman to achieve her record status in aviation wherever she went. And we're honored to have Eileen's handprints in bronze in our women's gallery. This came about quite as by accident when Charlie Mars, who we say harvested these handprints, was at an event getting an Apollo astronaut, and Eileen was there, and he had the molds and stuff to pour to get her handprints there, and we're sure glad she did. You can even see her wedding ring in there, a happily married woman there. Here is her first mission, STS-93, was Columbia in 1999. This was the Chandra X-ray Observatory. We cannot get X-rays down to Earth surface on telescopes because of the atmosphere blocks them. And so we had to put a telescope up there. Not just a telescope. This telescope is one of the largest pieces of equipment ever put in space. It had to be almost the entire length of the payload bay, so they had to use Columbia because the other orbiters had the airlock outside of the wall, but Columbia had the airlock inside the lower bay there for EVAs. So they need that extra space. And this was an amazing mission. Here's the crew. And it was scheduled for July 20th, 1999, which coincided with the 30th anniversary of Apollo 11 moonwalk landing on the moon. And yes, they had all three Apollo 11 astronauts, Aldrin, Armstrong, and Michael Collins was there also. And Eileen Collins, they're not kin, but they both share an Irish heritage there. So, but at T-minus 7 seconds, just before those three main engines are to light, it was scrubbed because of an indication of concentrated hydrogen around the engine compartment, which could have caused an explosion. And also in attendance at this July 20th, 1999 mission with the world's first commander, was President Clinton and First Lady Hillary Clinton, who made the announcement at the White House that Eileen was going to command this mission. And I've asked her about that. She hated all that publicity. She didn't like the attention. She just wanted to do her job. And she knew that there was a lot of focus on her because she was a woman, but she didn't let that bother her very much there. Now, when they did finally launch 3 days later on July 23rd, on the climb to orbit, the redundant controllers on two engines functioned normally, but one of them didn't. And they had a real close call. One of the engines cut off. It made them 7 miles short of the original projected orbit due to the premature cutoff of that engine. And they also caused that the problem was traced to a hydrogen leak in the number 3 main engine nozzle. Now they had a controller had dropped out, a voltage controller. And had that not dropped out, the leak was caused when a liquid oxygen post pin came out of the main injector during ignition, striking the hot wall of the nozzle, rupturing 3 liquid hydrogen coolant tubes, those little tubes that go around there. And that could have been a real disaster had it ignited, which it didn't. So that was a close call that they could have lost the engine. That was one of the things of the shuttle era, that they thought the engines would bite them. Nothing on the orbiter ever failed to cause a loss of the crew. the two losses of crew were always caused by the external tank or the or the solid rocket boosters. So this flight got Chandra up in the air, and it is still functioning 20-some years later up in the air. Marty says there's no air in space, Mark, in orbit. And that orbit is out about a third of the way to the moon. And this spacecraft has been functioning very well. Some fun facts about Chandra are that it can observe X-rays from clouds of gas so vast that it takes 5 million years to go from one side of the cloud to the other. During its maneuvers to target, it moves slower than a second hand as it slews. At 45 feet long, it's the largest satellite the shuttle ever launched. Okay, that's why they need that extra space there. Its resolving power is equivalent to read a stop sign at a distance of 12 miles. All right. Yet the electricity to run this is only 2 kilowatts, about the same to power a hairdryer. And one of the breakthroughs that the Chandra has been working on are black holes, those energy sources in the center of most galaxies where energy is sucked in and it's black because no light escapes. And at the edge of the hole is called the event horizon. Well, Chandra can observe X-rays coming out of particles that are dropping into a black hole at the last second before they fall in. That is the breakthrough of this observatory, is understanding black holes like we never have. We still don't understand them that well, but we do understand kind of physically the makeup of them. Why most galaxies have a black hole in the center, powering them, so to speak, is unknown, but that's why we keep exploring, is to find out these unknowns. So, well, in between her time of the Chandra in 1999 and 2005, for her next mission, there were safety posters out there. And this is one of the more famous ones. There's Eileen Collin with her daughter in about this time frame of 1999, 20-some years ago. So I don't know the daughter's name, and we'll find out later on future stories when we have her for her birthday in November. But are you ready for us to go? And think safety. And it's just a subtle way of saying, if you don't do your job, I could die and my daughter will never see me again. And those are the kind of posters that were down the hallways when you went to the bathroom or went to a meeting or something. A subtle reminder that whatever you're doing, make sure that you not only meet expectations, but exceed them, because lives like these are involved in there. So just to show you something that maybe you didn't know. Well, here is the return to flight. But this mission was chosen before the Columbia accident before the Columbia accident happened in 2003. And she was chosen in like 2000. Let's see, how did that play out? Oh, I've got it right here. The Discovery stuff right here. Actually, Eileen was involved with the astronauts. She was part of the safety office. That's why she okayed that poster, I think. And in 2001, she was assigned to command STS-114. All right. Well, it soon become a different mission 2 years later, as of course, Columbia had the disaster, and then the return to flight was July 26, 2005. All right, it was going to be in Atlantis, and because of some problems with the solid rocket motor separation, and that wasn't a problem that changed the orbiters. Some of the things that you don't think about what a commander can do, Marty, is and Marty's showing up there that the daughter's name is Bridget there. All right, so Bridget's got to be 25, 26 years old there. There she is, Bridget. Who told us that? Oh, you looked it up?
Yeah, I thought it was, and I just checked.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Marty. On the fly.
I read the book.
Producing there. He read the book. What would you think of the book? You could have commented about the book there.
Excellent book.
He's saying excellent book. And I'll have to get a copy of it there. What do commanders do? Well, they question things a lot. Even though this was this would have been the 114th flight, because 107 was the 113th launch of a shuttle. She expressed reservations about the studs that held the space shuttle in place on the launch pad. 4 gigantic studs. We have one of them here in the American Space Museum. They are supposed to, frangital bolts are supposed to explode at liftoff. There's 4 to each SRB holding everything down. I think very rarely do all 8 of them go. Usually 1 or 2 don't break off like they're supposed to, but that power of those solid rocket boosters is going to rip them away. The bolts holding down were supposed to be ruptured by explosive charges, like I said. But on up to nuts had failed to rupture on 1 in 5 missions. So you take 5 into this mission, so over 20 missions, 25 missions didn't have all of them explode. If too many failed to separate, the result could be catastrophic. So a new detonator system was devised at her urging, but it wasn't available for STS-114, okay? Then she had concerns about the booster separation motors that separated the SRBs from the orbiter. That's a story we want to tell and Stay Curious one time. Those are interesting motors. Those were redesigned for STS-114. And finally, she didn't like that the rudder speed brake actuators didn't work the way she thought they should. An inspection of the rudder speed brake actuators on Discovery revealed problems. They were rectified by taking parts from Endeavour. But since it would take a month to inspect Atlantis, Discovery was substituted for Atlantis for the STS-114 mission. And then at the launch, a piece of foam came off the external tank that measured 3 feet by almost 10 feet long. And that was a very frightful thing, though they made it to space safely. If that had hit the orbiter, and it didn't, that could have caused tremendous problems. So Collins blamed herself for not pushing me chute harder to affect changes on the external tank. This is what this woman's all about. And by the way, her daughter, Marty said, is 27 years old there now, shown in that beautiful picture there. So when we have her birthday in November, we'll dig into that. And we want Eileen on this program. She wants to be on the program. She is one of the most heavily booked astronauts out there because of the recent book that was done with her and Jonathan Ward, as well as just her nature of talking. And you're going to see a picture where I heard her talk 16 years ago in 2006. And little did I really know what a great person she was at that time. So we get, here's the crew. All right, we've got 2 short on there. Wendy Lawrence was part of this crew. Tom Jones is on the left. We hope to get Tom Jones is asked to be part of our museum, so we hope to be seeing him on Stay Curious and in our museum soon. And this was a crew that had in their hands literally the future of the space shuttle. Had this mission failed, who knows what would have done. But you got James Kelly is the co-pilot. Charles Camarda there is on the far left is Andy Thomas on the far left. I was saying Tom Jones. That's Andy Thomas on the left. Tom Jones is who wants to be involved with us. I get them confused. They look alike to me. But Andy Thomas was a Mir space station occupant. Charles Camardi's beside him. That was his one and done flight. And Soichi Noguchi there is the Japanese. It was Stephen Robinson who did some EVAs to take gap filler out on this mission. So here's the beautiful launch of Discovery. The return to flight was, of course, the first since February 1st, 2003. This in July 2005. They did 3 EVAs. This was a hard hat mission to the International Space Station, where they attached the Canadian arm up there on the space station. And there's Eileen as we talk about this mission a little bit. They did have some, they had an extended arm on there. That's why Wendy Lawrence went, because she was an expert on the arm. And they put a 50-foot extension, I think, on it so they could look underneath the orbiter and see if any tiles were damaged. They saw a gap filler protruding. It was decided to allow Robinson to attempt to pull out the gap fillers with his hands or forceps. So they had some training to do that, he pulled out the 2 gap fillers on the third EVA spacewalk during this mission. So very successful mission, 13 days in space compared to the 5 days of the Chandra going up and down very quickly up there. So, and wanted to mention, of course, there's another famous Collins beside Eileen's, and that Eileen, of course, that's Mike Collins there. And I always love this picture of Mike Collins inspecting the Columbia spacecraft after it returned from orbiting the moon, and he'd grown a mustache over that, so in there. So Eileen Collins is quite a wonderful person. Like I said, anyone that's met her knows that she likes people. She likes talking about what you're doing, and you're often more engaged, not want to talk about yourself, but she's always curious about you. And there's Mark Usiak on the left, and there I am with Eileen as we were at the Hyatt Hotel scouting out our Shuttle Fest, and we went up to the 5th floor to see the launch viewing area and stopped at the 3rd floor, and Eileen popped in the elevator, didn't even know she was in town. Now, she was president of the Astronaut Memorial Foundation for many years and is very close to that organization still. But I met Eileen in 2006. There I am, Marty. I haven't changed a bit. She hasn't changed a bit. I'll tell you that. That's amazing. And there I am at the East Tennessee State University in Johnson City, Tennessee, where she gave a wonderful talk. And I talking to her about an article that I wrote about her. And it says in 2006, and then in 2022, all right, 16 years later, Mark Usiak took this casual picture of us talking there, and that's her, Marty, isn't it? She's just very laid back. She's wanting to know more about our museum. Hadn't had time to come in here, but she will, and we're looking forward to that soon. So, Eileen Collins, thank you for your service to our space shuttle program here, and continually going out there and sharing the thrill of this 3-decade shuttle era that has changed our world and the way we live and look at the world, thanks to the International Space Station. So, all right, well, we're going to have a little love story here to tell you, Marty. I was really tickled to find this out today, and doggone it, where are my notes on this? I had those in front of me, and I am bad about that. No, that's not on the ground there. And I don't know what I did with that. But we're going to talk about, there's John Herrington. And John Herrington was on Stay Curious in October last year. Another great astronaut and a great guy. He has got some stories to tell. But he was on STS-114, did a spacewalk, and he is a Chickasaw Nation tribe member. When he went to space, he's born into the tribe, and he took a peace pipe and some other paraphernalia up there for the Chickasaw Nation. We had a great conversation with him, didn't we, Marty? Here, and so you can see that on YouTube. And kind of stayed in touch with John a little bit because he's like that, and once in a while just update him. And he's a big dog lover, and he came out to Space Center about 2 months ago, I think, and introduced us to his fiancee Danielle. And well, there is John with his beautiful dog Emmy. Okay, and he lives out in Montana, and he's a Facebook guy, so look up John Herrington on Facebook, all right? And you'll see this picture of him and Emmy, but here's the true woman of his life there, Danielle. And beautiful picture of her. And they got married yesterday. All right. There's a picture he had on Facebook visiting some friends. And there is their wedding picture out in Montana on a big natural reservation spread out there. I would love to have a telescope out there, John. But there's your beautiful bride, and I think that's Carmen Gee or something there, in there. And I can't believe I left my notes over there. Shame on me. John Herrington, like I said, he's from Wetumpka, Oklahoma. He also was a Nemo 6 commander, the Extreme Underwater Laboratory off of Key Largo down in Florida. He's a Navy guy, all right. And there is a gorgeous picture, one of their wedding pictures there, John and Danielle. He carried on his mission eagle feathers, arrowheads, wooden flutes, and the flags of the Chickasaw and Crow nations to honor his tribe. Since retiring, he's done a book called Mission to Space in 2016. It's a child's book. He's gotten his PhD in education, and he goes around doing all kinds of speaking engagements around the country out there. And talk about a romantic. Yes, John, he is certainly a romantic, and this is quite a love story for this guy that he actually took a bicycle trip from the state of Washington to Pad 39A. And blogged about it. I think that was 10 or 12 years ago there. So congratulations to you, John Herrington, and new Mrs. Herrington, Danielle. And what a beautiful parting shot there that he posted on Facebook with Emmy, his dog there. So wish you all well. Congratulations, John and Danielle, and we hope that you have a blessed wedding on there. Marty?
I wonder if you got the idea for that picture from Atlantis, the way it's being displayed.
Oh, well, in a way of the shadow, or?
Well, the way the curtain
Oh,
covering
the curtain.
Atlantis.
Yeah. That does look like the reveal of Atlantis there in the wavy curtain back there. Yeah, that's good, Marty. We always talk about when you see Atlantis being revealed in this building, it just is jaw-dropping because you just can't believe what it looks like. So hope you get to share that. And John Herrington, thank you for all you do to promote space and the shuttle era, as well as inspire the next generation of youth there. So Marty, thank you for a good job on Streamlabs today, an error-free job. We're going to thank our IT guy, Bruce Jacobs, for maybe solving that problem. Yes, sir. You have something else?
Who's watching?
Oh, yeah, who's watching? We've got Sacramento Children's Museum is watching today. That's awesome. Cynthia Rossi's watching, Doug Forrest, Robert Law, Gary Gerald, Carlton Bailey, Steve Hammer. We've got Patrick Adkins, Dave Stangy and his little granddaughter's watching. She likes to stay curious. Space Monkey's watching. Litza Della Porta. Thank you, Jonathan Ward, for watching. And Michael Rose and Tramsicum Bannon. Tramsicum Bannon's watching. And Jonathan, let Eileen know that we love her and we can't talk enough about her, what she's done for America, and inspire those generations of women behind her. And hope to see you soon, Jonathan Ward, in our museum. So, Marty, thank you for a great job today. Thank you all for stumbling around with me, for getting my notes and stuff. But I did the best I could. And don't tell anybody else I didn't, okay? So tomorrow will be Future Fridays. We're going to cook up something in the future that we're going to be talking about after Marty and I are long gone, probably. So until then, we thank you all for watching. Stay curious. I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you soon to bridge the space between us.